Very good, mate. Good to see you. Oh, all of a sudden you've popped up on a screen to my right and you're looking very well. So, Kalle, you probably heard me say there to the listeners, to Simon, to Spence, what is next for Eubank Jr.? Well, not so much what is next. Who is next? Is it Kell Brook?
Well, we've got a few negotiations ongoing. The obvious one is Kell Brook. That's one that we'd like to do next in the summer. Positive discussions. We had a meeting week before last with Sky and Kell's promoter or representative, Ben Shalom. And we had a good discussion, went away. We worked out a solution on weights, which was very important to both sides. And that's the sort of decision that obviously a promoter I don't feel should get too involved in. That's something where the boxers have to feel comfortable and most importantly feel healthy. So it's not just a weight we've agreed on. I can't discuss it in too much detail, but there's also the most important part is the rehydration clause the next day at 6 p.m. on fight day. So that part is agreed, and now we're discussing obviously the not so important part of professional boxing, of course, money.
Who gets what? Yeah, who gets what? So, I mean, does Chris have a desire to fight Brook? Is he keen to do it, get it on?
Chris is, this, I won't beat around the bush here. Chris is very simple in terms of opponents. We line him up and he does the business in the ring. He's not really that fussed. He likes the Brook fight. He thinks it's a good fight. They've had some needle over years and he's fine with that. He does want to box for the world title this year. That's his top aim. He said he doesn't really care how that works. And with the governing bodies in boxing, it's always a bit of a bag of tricks. We got this weekend Golovkin Murata. That's 2 belts on the line there. A lot of talk that those 2 belts may become vacant even afterwards if Golovkin wins. So suddenly that changes that situation. You got Charlo with the WBC. So there's lots of options there for later in the year. But we do love a British blockbuster.
Oh, we do. We do. Calle's right. We do. I mean, Simon and I were blown away by Kell Brook when we were up in Manchester.
Absolutely.
Would it be the same impact
I think so.
with Eubank Jr. against Brook?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. 2 big names, and I think that it's a fight that people would like to see. We love a dust up, don't we, with all Brits? And I think it sounds like we're getting quite close to that, Kalle, just the financial side of things to sort out. If we get that sorted out, when are we looking at seeing that fight happen? Would that be a fight that we'd see before the summer or around summertime?
We'd like it ideally before the summer. I think, both guys were out within a week of each other. I'd argue that, Chris had the tougher fight in the end. With Williams, picked up a hand injury. That's all fine now. He's over in Vegas training at the moment. And, I think Brook ended up having a bit of a punching bag session for a few rounds. So there can't be too much damage done there. And I think he's ready to go back in camp. But they had a long camp, to be fair to him, for the Khan fight. He needed it.
Kalle, a lot of people are asking me to ask you, what would the agreed weight be?
I was just going to ask
I can't confirm that now, but it's part of the contractual discussions. I don't want to end up in a situation. I very much enjoyed yours and Simon's discussion between Frank Warren and that lawyer the other day. I think I've watched it about 3 times now. Every time it cracks me up. And Simon, by the way, razor sharp on that one. Razor sharp.
Oh yeah.
So Kalle, you recognise not to challenge Simon because he seems to. He ties people up in knots, mate.
Simon's way.
Kalle, get right in about him. Don't be silly. You can challenge him anytime.
Don't worry, he's the smartest paint, Kalle.
Lot of respect there.
Yeah, no. I think, Simon, to be honest, we're talking about the undercard there at Wembley coming up for Fury White, and so many fights on it. With all due respect to the fighters, now I wouldn't be too bothered about that. Eubank Jr. against Brook, you bet. Get it on, get it somewhere. We'll watch it. You and I love Can against Brook.
I mean, I after the Khan Brook fight, I sort of said the next fight I'd like to see is Eubank, because Chris was talking about it straight afterwards, wasn't he? I do have a question for Kell, because obviously Chris talks a lot about his aspirations and his ideals, and it seems to be that money fights are the motivation rather than titles. And I was of the understanding from him back in September of last year that he was going to fight for a world title in December. Now, I know you've got to make these fights and they're not easy to do, But is he actually going to fight for a world title somewhere along the line? Because it seems to me that these are fights that are getting paid and not necessarily made.
Yeah, it's a very justified question. So we actually reached a deal to fight Andrade for the WBO championship. Then Chris had obviously a larger family bereavement. The other side had to move on. He had also some health issues, and we then said, okay, we switched to Sky. That was launched, so we said, okay, let's fit in with the Sky schedule as well. We took a tune up to get him back in, and unfortunately, it's not Domino's Pizza. You know, you can call them up and it arrives the next day. And we're looking, of course, for world titles, but at the same time, it's professional boxing. They've got a certain time to make the money. From our side, obviously not going into too much contractual detail, it's about delivering big fights. Those aren't classified as world titles.
I'm calling him out on what he says. I understand the dynamics of the business and I understand what holds it together. And we've had to listen to how he's got a big house in Las Vegas and how much money he's made. We know all that. But we want to see him win titles. And I'm curious if
you hate the fact he's got a big house in Vegas.
No, I couldn't care less if he's got a big house in Bognor. It's not about that. It's about the guy talks about winning world titles, and I want to see him in that sort of fight. But if the enthusiasm isn't there, Cal, if the enthusiasm isn't there on the side of Kell Brook, word on the street, the enthusiasm isn't quite there with Kell Brook. If that enthusiasm on that street isn't there, where do you go next?
We will move on, and the next is to go through. This weekend creates an aftermath in itself, you know, whether those belts get released or not. Just, Simon, just one thing to pick up on there.
Tell me.
A couple of years ago, I was sitting in a room with senior and junior for the first time, and I was doing the World Boxing Super Series with George Groves and Callum Smith, et cetera, et cetera. So basically the best super middleweights in the world. And it was all about titles, was of course a lot of money on the table. And the easiest guy to get on board was Eubank. So the aspirations, it isn't just talk with him.
He
got beat, but you know, he went in and he gave it a good shot. And it was, by the way, when we talk about weights, if I've been advising him at the time, for me, he's never been a 168er. He might be, in, you know, we all know with age we put on the pound.
So Calle's saying that Eubank's motivation isn't money, but you're saying, well, it is because he loves talking about big houses in Vegas.
No, I just want to see. I mean, I get to listen. I think he's a
I
great
understand Simon's point. I understand totally Simon's point. I think, and I think it's a justified point. It's just from behind the scenes, I know what Junior says to me. It's just Junior's not fussy when he has full faith in us to line up those fights. But we also have to learn what we deal with. You know, I mean, there is one potential to fight a Kazaki guy who's 11-0, doesn't really say much. In fact, if you ask me now, I couldn't even tell you his name. And is that the fight we want to see him in to win a world title? Then people
probably
will say,
not.
oh, yeah, exactly.
Well, Kalle, you got Murata fighting Triple G this Saturday. Triple G's actually 40 years of age tomorrow. And he's still going strong. He showed no signs of deterioration.
What is it? A 16-month layoff?
Yeah,
that's going to be the interesting part. How has a man at 40? I know what I felt like the morning after I turned 40. I thought I turned 50. But to do that as a professional, and I think Murata's very good. I don't think he's great. He's been beaten before by Rob Brandt, who was also in the World Boxing Super Series. I rate Murata, but normally that should be a 7-8 stoppage win for Golovkin on paper.
Sure.
How would he have fared now? He's had those tough fights with Canelo. We know that. Yeah. Has that taken it out of him? We'll see. I wasn't super impressed with him 14, 15 months ago. So,
Sure. Listen, Kalle, when you meet Eubank Jr. against Brook, announce it on this show, will you? Because this is the go-to place for the boxing these days. Everybody comes to this direction. You up for that?
As I said, I've been watching your stuff, love it, and keep it going.
Fantastic. Kalle Sauerland, thank you so much. I've got it, Spencer. The man here to my right is just annoyed that Chris Eubank Jr.'s place in Vegas is bigger than his in Spain. And yours is pretty big in Spain, I've got to say. But anyway, that would be all right, Simon. Eubank Jr. Brook, you and I would go to that. That's the kind of fight
I
you
like
turn
that
to me
fight.
and say,
I do
we're
like
going
it.
to that.
I do too. I mean,
Yeah.
I was the first person when I got interviewed by a few people after the fight. I think with Coogan and people of that nature. I said, "Okay, you're an alive one now because Kell Brook is a live one. So come on in, Chris. You can write all these checks and you have these big fights and you fight Liam Williams.
Yeah.
Okay, well, fight Kell Brook then. See how you get on with that, and fight him at a level that's fair, at a weight that's fair, and we'll see how we go.
Well, listen, I think that the weight that Kalle was talking about there, and they've come to an agreed weight. I know that 160 was too much. Kell was saying to it, if they go 158, I've got to say that's Eubank down really tight. And
but the rehydration clause is a big part of it as well.
Yeah, but rehydrating 24 hours is not enough to rehydrate.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm living proof of that, and
Yeah,
I understand.
I
I understand that.
I
Making
got a
a
similar
weight,
clause here
etc.
at talkSPORT. You must rehydrate. It's 1:45.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.